Hi guys, future Tristan here. Want to thank you for listening to another episode of Ordinary People, Extraordinary Stories. Just want to give a personal shout out to our Patreon supporters, more specifically, Tamsin and Courtney. We sincerely thank you for helping the channel, and if you're interested, feel free to click the link below to see our Patreon, where we have exclusive clips and episodes, as well as exclusive polls and deciding the next episode. So, with that said, let's get to the intro. Art, literature, third other thing. These are the building blocks of creativity, and when wielded effectively, can make some extraordinary outcomes. I'm your host, Professor Dr. Tristan Storyman, and this is another episode of Ordinary People, Extraordinary Stories. Today's episode is a man who wields words so deadly, it'll cut your very soul with intrigue. His name is Ryan Guzman, and today we get to actually hear some excerpts from his upcoming novel, God Slayer. Really enjoyed this episode, not only because we get to hear some of his work, but I don't get to talk very often about nerdy topics. We really get into the weeds with this episode. I hope you guys enjoy listening to this, and if you want to hear more about his stories, be sure to check out our Patreon. We'll be putting the other half of the episode for subscribers. Now, with that being said, if you're ready, turn off the light, grab your favorite broadsword, and get ready to slay some gods with another ordinary person with an extraordinary story. So, and I feel bad that I decided to wait until I hit record to tell you this, but I was also pooping. Like that was the one thing I was nervous about. Because have you ever had an interview right before like you had to do that, or like you're like, oh no, like
Oh yeah, toilet anxiety. Yeah, I've had that a few times before, but it hasn't bothered me terribly. It's just your bodily functions. You gotta, if you have to use the bathroom, then just go and don't try to bring that anxiety with you.
it's exactly you're pushing that anxiety out. You're literally just it's all it's big, it's brown, and that anxiety is passing your body, and then you
hmm
flush it, and then you're anxiety free. I like the way you paint that picture there, Ryan.
Yes.
Uh, OPES podcast, everybody, where we talk about pooping in interviews. Like we talk about everything here. But hey, welcome to another episode of Ordinary People, Extraordinary Stories. Normally, I don't just jump into the intro. We have a bit more conversation, but I want you to meet my guy here. His name is Ryan. Ryan, I don't even think I know your last name. I just know he's Ryan.
Yes, my name is Ryan Guzman. I'm currently a student over at Portland State University, itching to graduate at around, let's say, 2025 at the earliest.
Hey, you're almost there. Okay.
Right now, I'm just kind of in the midst of, I don't know, no, don't know what exactly, but I do have some stories to share, which I'm here for.
Well, you know what, actually, and I think I should go ahead and introduce the audience to how I met you. So, like you mentioned, he's a student, but he's really underselling himself, folks. My wife invited me to this place called the Portland Book Bar. Looks like someone let, drinking allowed in a library or like an old bookstore. It's cute, you know. But it was lit night, so it was an open mic night for short story writers. And I got to see like the full spectrum of literary masters go on there. And you were the last one, and it was your delivery and your seriousness. and the subject of the story that I was like, bro, I got to get this guy on. And little side note, while I was standing watching other people say their stuff, I saw him just typing away right at a table. I'm sorry, I was creeping on you. And I read the title of his book called God Slayer, which the cool thing is, if you're a Berserk fan, got some Berserk. It's Berserk inspired. It's not exactly Berserk, but it's Berserk inspired. But he's gonna read some passages or some stories from that. Right, Ryan?
Yep.
That's gonna happen later in the episode, though. But welcome. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for stopping by. This was kind of we could just go into it. But also, I kind of want to know you, I guess, know you more as a person. Your nerd influences.
Okay, why don't we start with influences then?
I like it. Anime guy. I mean, obviously you like Berserk, but like, where's your anime threshold? Like, are you a mega weeb or like you just like I watched Pokemon in the '90s kind of guy?
Well, first, you have to understand a bit of where I come from, because I am originally from California,
Me? What? Which part? Which part?
the Bay Area.
Oh, you bastard. So, okay, funny enough, no, dude, we're cousins. Sacramento. Like, and most of the people listening are from that area, Sac Bay area. So,
Uh,
okay, how long have you lived there?
I lived up until I think 2006 before I moved up to the Northwest. And you need to understand where my influences are coming from because I'm very much a 90s kind of kid.
Okay.
So,
Wait, so how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
in my early 30s, let's leave it at that.
Okay.
So,
Hey, well, I'll just say this. I turned 31 this year, so we're more alike than we think, young man.
yeah, okay. So,
But 90s.
as I was born in the 90s, I wasn't exactly the most popular guy. I never had managed to keep a lot of friends. Mostly it was I had a lot of people that I talked to, but it was more in transit. Like I never
Mm.
had any friends that would stick, and that was a problem for me growing up.
I mean, it's saying it, yeah.
But I never did seem to mind,
Okay.
mostly because I had two things that were keeping me focused on just, moving forward to having a normal-ish lifestyle.
Yeah.
Number one was gaming because my parents, when I was around 7 or 6, bought a Nintendo 64 that was brand new and on the market, and my sister and I would play that thing religiously.
So here's the question. What were your favorite 64 games?
Most of the stuff by Nintendo, actually, we never really deviated too much out of the weeds, but after that was the inspiration that we're talking about right now, which is animation. And it started with the really basic stuff that a 90s kid might latch onto, like Disney or Nickelodeon at the time. And most of the stuff that I watched was just kind of basic.
Hmm. I
But
mean,
there was
okay, keep going. Keep going.
but there was one Disney animation that I knew that if I was going to try and ape some kind of wild stylings to it, that would be it for me, and that was Fantasia, the
Hmm.
1940s version of it, anyway.
Okay.
And I don't know what it was. I mean, for me, it was probably the sum of all of its parts. The idea that it was just its music to this wild-looking animation at the
Yeah.
time that I thought, okay, that is insanely cool. Where can I sign up to do this?
Okay.
So originally, my hope was to get into animation. But of course, this is 90s me we're talking about here. So we're talking, I had this very limited grasp of art, so I had to learn how to be an artist. And then the art thing wasn't doing so well because I wanted to put art to motion, and there just wasn't any opportunities where I could really do that for the
Right.
most part. So I ended up stewing on those emotions for a bit, right until I moved up to the Northwest.
Okay.
So here I am now in the Northwest. I still have those dreams of being an animator, but animation school costs a ton, and there are like these nightmare stories I keep hearing about animation from forum posts and blog posts.
Oh, dude, especially nowadays, man. Like that's a whole conversation in itself.
Yeah. And after that, I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe I should just step back and kind of explore my options because now my art is starting to get somewhat better, but
Okay.
not to the point where I'm able to, whimsically say, hey, here's my audition to become part of this studio thing. Will you hire me? And like I was good, but I wasn't, prodigal child good. So
Hmm.
there was that.
I'm kind of realizing more than anything, like that's the whole issue about the prodigal child, the like child prodigy kind of thing. Just a lot of people were like, this kid's gonna go places, and we're now managers at retail shops, or we're just like, it you didn't the kid who won the spelling bee is not a millionaire.
Hmm.
That he's making about 50,000 a year, and he's feeling guilty about going to McDonald's, you know? Like like I guess what I'm saying is being a child prodigy didn't help any of us. I'm
Yeah.
realizing now.
Yeah. And for me, I think that's especially true with how my approach to life has been, given that I'm about to reveal something very personal here, that I'm classified as a neurodivergent,
Hmm.
inasmuch as the condition that I have does affect me, but I would not like to be judged based on that. And I felt that maybe it was because that I was pushing myself so hard to achieve this dream that I didn't stop to think, okay, well, is are people judging my ambition or my lack thereof part of that?
Mm. That's they dude, these are big thoughts. Like I'm not trying to sound condescending, but these are big life questions for anybody. And like you throw in some divergent neuralisms on top of that, that's a big deck. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't. Oh man. And bro, this whole conversation started from when I said animation. I was just talking about like the Japs anime, the the Japanese cartoons like
Oh
Poco.
no, we'll get to that eventually. We'll get to it
I want to talk
eventually.
about Fantasia because, like, bro, like I love that you love Fantasia because shout out to my English teacher, Miss Darling, Miss Darling. We love her. She's wonderful. She showed us Fantasia, and, like that was the whole part. It's like look at this piece of art that doesn't say a single word, and it's telling this story. Like it is,
Yeah.
and there's so many like amazing. Dude, okay, I just there's so much to talk about Fantasia and the fact like how it was made by like a kind of very pro Nazi, just like we just have to beat the crap out of the artist hard enough to hand make it and they can make literal masterpieces. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Like it is juicy with just like quality and you can't get that anymore. Everything's so digital. Everything's so like you mentioned those stories about like the horror stories that like you're hearing new animators are happening now. Like what is it, like Marvel will charge 200 million for a flick to do animated work and it looks god awful. Like what was it like? Oh man, that just don't get me started. So maybe it's a good thing you're not an animator is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Maybe so okay, so you're from the Bay.
Hmm.
You moved up to the Pacific Northwest. You've been going to school. I, you're a gamer thinking about an animator. When was the pivot from animating to writing then?
Well, it started around the time I did start the early phases of streaming, and at that time, I was going into just anything that was popular at the time. So
Hmm.
I ended up watching a lot of crap. Let's be generous here in between, but also a lot of slice of life stuff that was in in the middle of all that.
Now, would you mind explaining what slice of life is for my non-weeb members that are listening?
Very much, stories that you might hear from a friend, stories that are very true to life. So no fantastic kind of scenarios out there.
This guy's working a crappy job. He's trying to find love. It's a show about cooking, but really detailed. Man, it's fascinating when you talk to people who say they don't like anime because like they're missing out because it's
Yeah.
not we came a long way from just giant big heads feel like meh, meh, meh. Like it's not there are cheesy ones for sure, but it's like there are amazing pieces of media that tell beautiful stories that are very well drawn and
hmm
it's just some people just refuse to break that ceiling. They can't get
Yeah.
past that prejudice. It's I don't know. It's kind of like I guess you'd say about mentioning your diagnosis. It's like it's very assuming of people that like
hmm
I'm sorry you expected me to do the minimum. Like why wouldn't I be able to do something amazing or make art or I don't know.
Yeah.
Does that happen a lot? Like do people I don't want to say baby you, but like kind of glorify your victories or kind of make, like you can't tell if people are being genuine with their praise because you are a good writer or because you're that way.
Well, the thing is that these days I kind of take those comments as I go because I try my best not to let that part of my personality try to dictate where I'm wanting to go.
Smart.
So I try to live my life as best as I feel that it's going.
Hmm.
And there are some times in which I will have people that try to limit how fast I'm going to try and see try to have them see from my perspective like I've got this thing planned out in my head and I know this is how it's going to go because I've thought about it. This is the best course for me. I don't care what your opinion might be because this is my plan going forward. This is how I'm going to do this.
And you know what? And the best thing about that answer is like that is the only answer you can say is you
Mm,
made that decision. And well, hey, I don't mean to make this such a big thing. We're here to talk about anime and your book writing, but I had no idea, and I will tell you, that's not going to change how I treat you or like, like discuss with you. The whole reason I came up to you is like I like the way you read and I can just tell you think about your answers, which I think are important. Because I think too many people will do like a gut answer and say, when I can tell you're like, I've thought about this. Like I don't know. It's an intelligent thing. That's why
mm.
I wanted to say hi to you. Because I was like, this guy's smart.
Yeah, of course. But
But
if I may
continue,
can okay,
please.
right. No, it's when I started to stream and watch anime from those early days of streaming that I figured, well, you know what? I figure I'm eventually going to need to encounter some point where I'm going to need to write this stuff out because I can't just draw the plot. I'm going to need to
Mm.
just write it. And that's how I ended up turning into writing. So it is from that point where the I'm seeing these stories about or seeing the anime inspired things that I've been drawing and then thinking, I could probably just make comic books and that would be fine. That would be a nice juxtaposition for me to get into writing. And eventually I did go into writing and now I'm plotting out various different like major stories in my head. And then eventually that led to where I am right now, just writing out what I can, making all the different connections to the world that I'm planning to write in, and all that just for, I don't know, like a book deal maybe, or something in that future. I don't know where this is going to go, but all I know is this is my ride, and I'm proudly going to represent that.
That's such a, oh my God, that's the title. This is my ride, and I will proudly represent that. I'm sorry, I gotta write that down. That's the
Oh,
cool
go
thing
ahead.
about this show is that sometimes people say like the best stuff, and I'm just like I don't know. I'm gonna clip. I feel like I'm gonna clip a lot of this episode, man. This thanks for coming on. Oh, I don't know if you know, I say thank you a lot, so just be prepared.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course. It's welcoming, believe
This
me.
is the ride, and I'm gonna take. I'll just whatever. I'm gonna like remind. I'm talking to my editor right now. He's also on Discord, so it's really easy to.
Uh,
Actually, and I'm probably just going to pause this so the audience doesn't have to hear. Well, I'll have Matt mute me. No, 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 no. I'm gonna stop recording for a second. I appreciate that. Yeah, just had to adjust the old microphone, people, and
mhm.
I really figured they didn't want to hear that. Just the thing, just. Oh my God. Okay, so you were saying intermission. Where were we last at?
Just where I'm at right now, how I became a writer, and I believe now we're getting into influences.
Yeah, but this is my life, and I'm gonna write it. Just
Yeah.
it's okay. I mean, okay. Yeah. Let's talk about influences. Your upbringings, though. Like, what kind of big wheel did you ride before you rode your life that is now? I can make it sound eloquent. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Influences.
Okay. So when I was going to begin my journey into writing, I wasn't able to draw on a lot of like classical literature because most of the literature I've been reading, I should say, was for school. School literature, like think To Kill a Mockingbird, a little bit of free form lit that I was allowed to pick.
Great Gatsby, Frankenstein. But yeah, there's a literature is interesting.
Yeah.
So what did you get to pick then, if anything?
Well, like I felt like those books weren't trying to teach me any techniques or ways of trying to compose things. I didn't find too
Hmm.
much with those, but there was one series, Lord of the Rings
Ooh, Tolkien,
by J.R.R. Tolkien, that
classic.
that did get my brain thinking a little. And it was that I listened to the stories, I watched the movies, and to me, that was like, I didn't know it at the time, but I was secretly learning how to compose my work as a whole from that.
Fascinating. Okay. All right. Well, do you have a favorite Tolkien story or even short story or
Probably my favorite would be The Hobbit, because there was that series on tape that I listened to very early on,
okay.
and that was probably where it got started with my fascination with fantasy in a way.
Do you remember how old you were when you read The Hobbit?
Probably like I don't know, 13, 14 maybe.
That sounds about right. That sounds right. I remember we tried to read it in sixth grade, and I was at the point where I was like, reading's boring. Like I like video game, but then I started reading even a little bit, and I was like, man, holy crap! Like Tolkien is the kind of guy where I have his coworker who's obsessed with him. Like we just always
hmm
talk about like, have you ever looked into the lore behind Tolkien? Like just the his thoughts about how even like Lord of the Rings came to be, how it was like a reflection of his views in World War II, or how he made up his own language. Like I don't
Oh
know,
yeah,
he is.
yeah.
It's a good answer. It's a good answer, and
hmm
if anyone's ever bored, look up like 30 Tolkien facts on YouTube, and you're gonna be like, "What? This guy is insane. Was he on the spectrum? Just because that boy is like seemed like a whole nother level. Just like he transcended like smartness, and I don't know.
Well, he could have been a savant. We'll never know.
Hmm. But so influences. So that was it was The Hobbit. You read that when you were like 13, and then
hmm
I guess when did you first take the stab at writing? Or like,
My first stab at personal writing wasn't until I started in college. And that was
Yeah.
when I was given license to do whatever I wanted, and irregardless of my career path that I had at first flush.
Amen. Your freedom.
hmm And it was there that I started with a comic book series that I created on my own, which is which is kind of aping the very popular high school kids versus God narrative that was kind of popularized throughout throughout a lot of different stories, but it was my spin on it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh. It's just that to the normal people listening, they'll be like, "That's a crazy high schoolers versus God." Who to and to the weebs, we're like, "Bro, there's like 12 of those. Like that's just normal anime plot." But okay, so cool. All right.
Yeah, so I started with that, and right now I'm kind of taking a brief hiatus from it, even though I've got like full arcs of that plot finished. Like I know where it's gonna begin, I know parts of the middle, here's how it ends, all that good stuff. And it was then that I managed to finally get off of that obsession for a bit and start writing the book that would eventually lead to Godslayer, which is the Tales of Exodus, which is where Godslayer would eventually take place in.
I love it. It sounds like you sound like a metal, like a thrash metal band, like Tales of Exodus. This is Golgoroth Pig Destroyer. Well, okay, so and and this is a fun conversation to have. Is the whole because it all boils down to stories. Thanks for
hmm
telling me about like the power of myth because I have it saved on YouTube. The whole like the 6 hour docu series or something.
hmm
I'm gonna have fun reading that. But
Oh,
the
yes.
idea of what a story is, like obviously they have a beginning and an end. They have
hmm
here, but there's different types of stories. They have like heroes' journeys, this, that, and the other thing, though. And in the West, we kind of know our stories. Like I think for people who are Americans, they're like, yeah, we know. Like we've seen Forrest Gump, we've seen Saving Private Ryan. Like we've seen movies, Jurassic Park. We've seen movies, and we kind of have an idea of what stories are. And then you go to Japan, and they have such a different twang to it.
hmm
Like to us, we wouldn't think, oh my God, how would we possibly kill God? But Japan can have those views because I mean their whole culture. Like it makes me think, would this be have the same story narrative if we didn't drop the bomb? That kind of thing. Like they
Sure.
surviving just nuclear fallout, and then to the point economic boom, and then you kind of like, well, what's my identity?
hmm
And I don't know. It's if people can open their minds up to okay, let me potentially see what this story can be, you can find a lot of depth to it.
Oh, yeah.
And darkness that's extra spicy. That's the one thing is they can be very, very brutal. This is a roundabout way of me asking, how dark is Godslayer? Like, are we talking about really, really, really bad, or is it kind of like I don't know? That's kind of like the new thing for anime is like how much can we push the envelope before we just make this into a hentai?
Okay, good question. The idea behind it is that once again, I'm looking at this as an homage to Berserk, which in my mind is what I call Dark Age fantasy, where there are noble people, perhaps not noble in upbringing, but noble in the sense that they are trying to set things right, but the world around them is not giving them the opportunity to do so.
Mm,
Because, once again, this is, I'm assuming that Berserk was taken place during this pseudo dark age in which you had mercenary camps running about trying to make gold for corrupt kings that are trying to siphon off territory from other fertile lands.
Having just gang fights. That's all it is. It's just never-ending gang fights of just like, I want your land, bro. I want. Well, okay. So to everyone who hasn't seen Berserk, because I have to again, you gotta remember, I got normies who listen to this, and
Oh yeah, sure.
there's it's real that people don't know what it is. To the people who don't know, it is considered kind of, I don't want to say like the Fantasias of anime, but it is a pillar. It is drawn very well. It has deep characters. So, like what you mentioned, dark fantasy is that, like you said, people want to do a good thing in this world, but this world is unforgiving. It's hostile. Rape is something. Abuse is something. Child slaves is something,
Hmm.
and it ain't pretty. But at the same time, the world isn't pretty sometimes. It's ugly and dark and black, and it's because of that blackness that's where the light can shine.
Hmm.
Berserk is a story where there's a human being who had just the worst experience as a child, being a child soldier, and he's hard and badass and unforgiving, but he's also stoic and an insanely deep being. And I don't know, how long has Berserk been going for? Like it's I guess what I'm saying is Berserk's really important. And if you haven't heard about it, look into it. So, yours is a dark fantasy in a sense, is what you're saying. Your
Hmm.
Tales of Exodus.
Yes.
Okay. Tell
And
me more
that
about
is, and the idea for it is that it is a series of short stories taken from people who have passed on and are either relaying their thoughts and feelings onto physical text, or their messages are being carried over by these divine, greater beings called the Nine, who act as the gods of the realm. And they are referred to more accurately as the Nine Lords because, there wasn't exactly a word for describing these greater beings at first, but they often liked to be referred to with the title of Lord or Lady after their name, thus, Nine Lords. And it was during this writing process that I was writing through the different stories that I was trying to envision, like, what kind of story would a, like, would justice be like?
it.
And it was during that exploration into like what that means and what it could signify that I ended up with the story that I'm going to share a bit of today.
Okay. Wait, so is this Godslayer or Exodus? Tales of Exodus.
This is Godslayer. Yes.
Okay. All right. Oh, and I found the answer to my question. It came out in 19, well, it was a spin-off, a little short story that he didn't plan much of it being in 1989, and then the first official volume was 1990. So would you
Wow.
say like your Tales is your kind of little pre-world, your little pre-universe that became ultimately Godslayer?
Hmm.
Okay. Well, F and A. So, but you still didn't answer the question though. I mean, I kind of, does this take place now or back in the Middle Ages?
This takes place in a realm outside of our own.
Okay.
It is a world in which the dead have returned to life, but they are in kind but this realm is kind of like it's hard to put this.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a passage to reincarnation is the best way I can describe it.
They got isekai'd. Is that
Yes, but it's the it's the dark twist that makes this unique.
okay.
That you have to literally journey into this realm in order to earn the right to be reborn. That's
Hmm.
the twist.
Interesting. But we don't know that when we're reading it.
Well, no, that's the subtext behind it.
Okay. Interesting.
The story that I'm going to start with right now
Okay.
is introducing one such soul as this is going to introduce everything. So, if you don't mind.
No, no, no. Okay, I'm gonna set the okay, this is fun. Okay, I have an editor, so I can put things in post production.
Oh yeah, of course.
Do you want like I was thinking about putting like some ambience like like just some like we're in the mountains and there's wind and maybe some eerie music and like what are you looking for?
Something, well, given that this is going to go for a hard plot, something very, I would say mystical, but kind of dark and
Mystical but
mystical.
deadly serious. Like things
Right.
are happening. Lands are being sold, slaves are being bought and or killed. That kind of okay. So
Right.
we'll start right here, and I'm gonna shut I'm just gonna shut up. Like I know it's like they can't, but no, seriously. Everyone, this is an excerpt from Godslayer by Ryan. What's your last name?
Guzman.
Ryan Guzman. Enjoy.
A young man passes by a shrine. He makes an offering of animal fat. May the gods hear my prayer. Elsewhere, Ropash and Blue travel the sands of first breath to travel to the city of Elysium, where they might come into contact with the Nine and find out if Blue's encounter was just an anomaly or a sign of other dangerous goings on.
What is it like down there?
Down where?
The Abyss. I've heard a lot of stories from passing souls like me. It's supposed to be a place devoid of light. In that realm, there are creatures as big as houses, with eyes the size of dinner plates, claws like sharpened blades.
All baseless rumors. It is not filled to every corner with monsters.
Okay, then what about the void of no light and
I smell another.
another fallen?
No, the slain.
Here? But then it wasn't just that one time.
We will see soon enough. And that is an open excerpt for one such chapter.
I'm mad that you didn't keep going. I'm pissed. I'm like, I want to know more. I want to know about the spooky thing that's about to happen. Dude, that was amazing. Sound effects, applause here for Ryan, Mr. Ryan Guzman. I will say, dude, you ever think about voice acting?
Maybe, but I would have to get into contact with someone that can arrange that.
Well, as somebody who's also mildly interested in streaming, we should talk after this episode.
Sure.
Dude, you took me to some place. Like
Yeah.
I could tell, I could hear my grizzled veteran, and I love that. He's my favorite archetype. Just like the whole, just like I've been in 30 years. It took my wife, my eye, but I'm never gonna give up. Just I love it. So he was great. Your scared newbie character, he was fun too. And my question is do they know that they're dead? And I knew that in just the small little dialogue you had. You had a lot of world building in just a couple of sentences. That was chef's kiss. 10 out of 10. I can't wait for you to write the whole series. So that's
Mm-hmm.
Tales, well, that's not even Tales of Exit. That's just Godslayer. So,
Mm-hmm.
oh, there's some more questions I have. So, okay, where
Well,
are we at with the book? So, when's it coming?
the book is going to take a long time to finish, sadly, but if I can really speed up my process, I can probably finish it, maybe in the near future. The goal right now is that I'm writing this as one of my key, like the one key focus I've got right now.
I love it. I mean, we can just talk about the universe right now. I'm not going to
Yeah,
spoil.
sure, I'd love to go into
You
that.
know what? Don't spoil too much. And then if like you're like, bro, they can't know, they're like they have to find out. Like, all right, okay. So you mentioned the nine gods. When every time like I think about gods in media, they always have like some like, oh, this is the god of wine, and this is the god of the color red. And what is your nine god gimmick, if you could share?
So, in this universe I'm writing, the Omniverse, if you will, the lords have just come out of this massive conflict referred to as the Reformation War, in which the current ruling lord at the time, Exodeus, was disposed and promptly eradicated from all existence. But just like a cockroach out in a fridge, you can't really kill one of those things one time. They will come back later.
Okay.
Foreshadowing.
Because you did mention the dead rising and whatnot. Okay, interesting. So, do we have a god of the dead and a god of life, or are they all
Yes,
gods of the dead?
yes, in a sense, each of the nine holds an aspect of humanity or of life in general that are needed to help keep everything cohesive,
The
and so the
balance.
universe itself will break.
Okay.
So each of the nine have a position in the omniverse. Like, there's gods of revelry, desire, gods of knowledge and learning, but the most powerful among them has the ability to control space and time at will, meaning that they are, by that measure, supreme.
Yeah. Well, is that just one god, or can they all kind of do that?
Every god has some power they contribute to, the universal cohesion, and
But
it's broad enough to where, like, each one can keep the other in checks and balances,
okay, I like that. But
and
but that space and time god, is that just a one god power? Because, like, that guy
that
sounds like he's the powerful one. Like, he's like, I'm technically the strongest.
they,
Ooh.
correction, they, because they've
Okay.
been warping in and out of reality so
Oh
frequently
my god.
that they have become non-binary as a result.
Interesting. Interesting.
But
Okay.
yes, it is important that you do bring up that history because Echo, the Lord of Time and Space,
Okay.
is by extension non-binary, but they were originally born as a son.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, my question is does this god, because, like, okay, the entire time you've been talking about this, I've been imagining like JoJo characters, like, just
Hmm.
really just like insanely detailed, doing insane poses. And, like, I'm imagining the god of time and space, and I could totally see them being gender fluid or non-binary. Just basically they're David Bowie. um Do they have boobs? Or is it like a state of fluctuating where they have boobs and then they're gone and then they appear very masculine and maybe very, very feminine? Or are they
The I
just right in the middle?
the idea is that they're modeled after being androgynous,
Hmm.
so that they might appear more masculine to some who behold them
Ooh, I like that. Constantly changing.
and may appear feminine to others that would
Oh,
behold them.
dude, okay, so your anime, because I'm just imagining, I'm painting the anime of this. I think every time we see that god in shot or in a scene, we're gonna give it this perspective of the other god, so they'll constantly be changing. Like,
Yes.
it's all kind of the same god, but it's like a just different. Oh, see, that's a spicy story. That's a good story. That's okay. All
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Can I ask a question? Do you give me props for at least, like, going there with the god stuff, or, like, do a lot of people
Oh
pick
yeah,
up on
totally.
this? Okay. Is it well? Have you ever been able to nerd out with somebody like this about your story lately?
No, I don't think I have. I think you're one of the first, so I'm super happy that we're able to, like, get into the weeds of this. So,
And that's called an ordinary person extraordinary story. Shout out. Say hi to people. I don't mean to get preachy, but, like, they're just say hi. Ask how the cash register's doing. Just talk to your people, and if someone's showing art, look at it. And if it sounds good, compliment them. And if you believe it, be genuine. And I dude, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's you have the voice of the narrator, the story building of a guy who can really get out there, and I know you appreciate the classics. Like, I know
mhm.
you will do this art justice. And it kind of segues into my next question, like my next topic is the creator Dragon Ball. He died.
Yeah, I
Seeing
mean that,
so many people talk about it because like how much like Dragon Ball meant to people. I mean, it's
and yeah, although I never really did get into this series, I knew like the story beats of it quite well, where it was originally a spin on the Journey to the West, that it
mm-hmm.
was that it would then go off into this whole other tangent in Z and would evolve into this genre-defying beast that it's become.
Genre
So,
defying, culture defying. I know
yeah,
I don't have to explain what Dragon Ball is to people. If you haven't gotten it then I'm sorry. You're either too old or you refuse to listen or go on YouTube or talk to a live person. Because it's
uh,
not just Dragon Ball, is he did Dragon Quest and I don't know all the stuff but like he was a huge influence to a lot of
oh yeah,
people
Chrono Trigger
mystically.
is
Yeah,
another one.
there you go, which I will respectfully say I never played, and everyone gushes about it, and I can kind of see why. With the whole time skipping, jumping mechanic is. Have you played it, Chrono Trigger?
Uh, Sadly, I have not, but
Ah, we're
I might
posers, dude.
consider.
We need to. We need to make it happen. Like if we're
Yeah,
real hardcore gamers, we need to make it happen. Well,
yes,
okay. Do we? So back to Godslayer. Okay, so we're in the middle. Well, it's an alternate timeline. The time is just different, period. But
yes.
people would generally consider is it more fantasy-esque, like there's their magic and sword and boards, and like we're fighting with medieval weapons?
Absolutely. That is the vibe that I'm going for here, because if you were to try and take someone from the modern world and put them into this realm of the dead, their first reaction is, oh shit, I've got to walk. And so they would walk. And the idea behind it is that the gods are essentially testing you to prove, like, okay, you've had this life. We're going to judge you a bit based on like how you're able to get from where you are standing now to this far off point in the distance. This is separate
Hmm.
from the journey that Ropash and Blue are going to take. But this is what the mortals go through. Their journey is different in that sense. But
Mm.
it is that journey that Ropash himself is very keyed into.
Is that the badass like the grizzled veteran Gorposh?
Yes,
What's his name?
Ropash.
Roposh. Okay,
Yes,
Roposh. Okay, because I want to make sure I'm saying my man's name's right. Roposh. Okay.
yes. And he is referred to as a fallen, part of a
Ooh.
larger pantheon of gods that worked with the Nine in order to bring an end to the Reformation War. And
What's the Reformation War? Oh
uh
my God.
well, as I mentioned, it's and the Reformation War itself being this fight for giving humanity a better position to simply live and exist
In
with
this
these
realm?
greater divinities.
Interesting. Okay. Okay.
And Echo, being their leader, has the idea that, we depend on human lives in order to exist. Without them, we're nothing. And so, as Exodeus was treating them like crap all the time,
Is that a god or is that
we've
just a leader or king?
Exodeus is like the former head honcho of things
Interesting.
in this universe.
Wait,
And
as one of the nine or as just a
no,
power?
as a power, he
Hmm.
was the former ruler, but he was treating humanity with such great disdain that Echo thought it should be time for a change,
Hmm.
because humans don't deserve to live like every day, like they have the lifespan of flies, where they might live 30 years or so, and that'll be as old as they're going to get,
Yeah.
because they might piss off this radically powerful god that once, at one point, ruled everything.
Yeah. Well, okay. So Echo, is that the one of the nine that controls space and time?
Yep, that's the one.
See, I like that because like that's kind of what humanity's edge is. Like if you go to any video game, humanity's like we have very we have finite time. It's because of that we take risks and we're brave and we like sometimes the biggest heroes come from us. And to have a god that the whole point of it is they decide what the time is very fascinating. Like he's like, I want to help humanity. And I'm gonna help
Hmm.
them by giving it the one resource that they constantly crave is time.
Hmm.
Like,
Yep.
whew, man, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it, man. This is okay. Man, okay, so you might need to tell me I need to just wait till it comes out. How you know how every anime or every like in the, before the world began, like the Dark Souls intro, there were
Hmm.
three gods who created everything. Like, do we know that story before we get into the book, or we?
Oh yes, that is very much like part of the context that I'm planning to write out with one of the books I've got in mind. That's but that well once again, that's a huge bit of context that not a whole lot of people are going to get right off the bat. So
Of course.
it's for that reason I'm writing Exodus Tales from Beyond and doing all of that so I can then get to this, which is how about I share some more of what I've written?
Okay, is this more God Slayer? This Tales
Yep,
from Exodus. Okay.
yes, more of that.
All right. Yet again, just guys, my man Ryan Guzman. I'm gonna lower down the lights. We're gonna get nice and comfy. What atmosphere are we trying to go through for this reading?
Okay, so for this next part, they're in a village
Okay.
somewhere, like they're making their way to Elysium. They're now in a village.
What do you want? Like, happy tavern music? Like,
No, just kind of like the wind blowing off in the distance, kind of.
I'm gonna bleep this out. I'm gonna like put a little sound effect here. Is something menacing gonna happen? Like,
Oh,
is
you'll see. You'll
okay?
see.
And I'm gonna stop talking.
Here?
Banality is often the preferred skin of evil. Both souls enter to see a simple village that is quite common amongst the dunes. Hamlets like this one are more or less to help other souls on their way. But this one, however, has a striking appearance to it.
Hmm. There's a lot of meat on these places. Wonder what it's made of.
Or very clearly, the evil is right in front of us.
Looks like a market. Maybe gotta purchase some. Help these people out.
Oh, the two see a villager in the distance. Oh, oh, wondrous gods, my prayers are answered! And the villager runs to them and sinks his teeth into Ro. Blue is shocked at first, but Ro is unfazed. Both watch as the villager tries to rip off a piece of his flesh, but then begins to slowly slump down in pain.
What the heck was wrong with him?
I do not know, but I have the suspicion this meat is not from an animal. End scene.
I'm so mad, man, because this one I think shit's about to get like fucked up. Here comes the fight music. Like it's you blue ball me, man. I love it. I love it. It's well, everyone. That was God Slayer from my man Ryan Guzman, and just man, that's the best part about writing is that you get to build something. It's creating. It's you get to make a universe and tell stories and like again, dude, you got the writing down because you're painting such ominous things like in just oh man, it's great. So
Hmm.
I'm kind of understood like from anime. Like one thing I've noticed as a common storytelling thing from anime is that a lot of the times they'll expand the world. Like you're like, oh hey, this is a simple hero's journey. My character is gonna go fight the thing, and gonna overcome their obstacle, and we're all happy. But right before like the second to last episode, the camera pulls back, and you realize there's a bigger picture. There's someone bigger than the nine. This story isn't about the nine. This story is about what the nine was holding back, and now what humanity has to figure out and do because they did something. Like you thought the story was just about this. No, now it's bigger. Are
Hmm.
you going to have that happen in your books ultimately? That we're not going to really know what's going on until we keep reading?
Yeah, that's how I've been writing it so far, and it seems to be working. It's a great effect.
More reason why watch anime people is like I think that's a lovely storytelling element of
Hmm.
just the whole oh you thought we were just in Oz or for Disneyland or Neverland you're no it's we the game we haven't even started the game and are you like that's good said better there you go exactly
Yes.
oh man well, I hope this conversation inspires you to write more, and I will offer my services. And by services, I mean like if you need help world building, I am obsessed with world building. I love world building. One
Yes.
of my favorite, if I could, he's my if I like top 10 guess, I'd have him on here. Chris Metzen, the guy who made like the Warcraft universe.
Oh.
Like I love what he did because the way he kind of explained it is like he had like a grand narrative. Like here's the beginning, here's the somewhat proposed end, but how we get there, well, that's the fun part. Like we don't have to get to the end for a long ass time until we feel like okay, the story needs to get here, and it's just kind of like what you're showing. Less is more. Sometimes just getting through the current situation. This meat isn't human. Well, it doesn't look like it's from an animal. Well, what is it, Ryan? What kind of meat is it? Are we meat? Like,
Yeah.
that's the best part about writing. I know I'm gushing about like the simplicities of storytelling, but it's yeah. I like how he writes story. Like, have you played a lot of Warcraft?
I used to play a lot of Warcraft, but I have since divorced myself from it owing to the company that it hails from due to.
I know that's the one shitty thing. Like
Yeah.
it's if you don't know people to the normies, the Blizzard company or the Blizzard company, video game company Blizzard, in the past couple years have faced scrutiny after scrutiny for not only doing shitty business practices but also shitty social aspects. People were assaulted. It was a gross nasty frat guy culture. I think some chick killed herself, and it got so bad that the company had to scrub the images of like pillars of this company, and it sucks. And they made some of the most best games. Like that's the dichotomy of it. It's R. Kelly. It's like wow, this music's amazing, and then you hear the horrible stuff going on. You're like, oh my god,
Oh yeah.
this is just it's evil. You can't touch it. It's you're like like you want to sing along, and then you're like, oh, this guy's a piece of shit. Fuck this guy.
Yeah.
Well, besides that, and I think Metzen's cool. I just appreciate how he wrote story because so to anybody else who doesn't know the Warcraft story,
It sucked. It stunk.
is that it really has levels, but for me the most important one was probably Warcraft 3, where we
Hmm.
had are you familiar? Do you mind if I gush?
Yes, I am familiar with that one.
Okay. To everybody else, it's a Darth Vader story. We have the chosen one. Anakin, this guy's name's Arthas. He's a paladin, he's a warrior of the light. Humans have just recently won a war against these outlandish invaders of green people called orcs that just killed everybody. People died a lot. They pushed them back, and this guy's a quote unquote holy paladin. He's like I don't know. He's like daddy's prince. Like he's rich king of this area. His son, credible warrior, credible fighter, man of God, kind of goes down a path of destruction, like wanting to help his people by all means, though, and doing just the work. Like now, I think back on, like bro, like you kind of went full stupid. Like you like you're like I'm gonna save my people by giving everyone AIDS.
Hell yeah, boy!
And just, that's how we'll win. Like it's so that's the story. But then you on the other side of the Thrall story, which are you aware of? Like I'm sorry if I keep asking you.
Yes, I'm aware of that one too.
So same universe. This is all happening. The orcs that lost the war all go to internment camps. Again, this is all written by a guy I think is it's a brilliant writer. Is this like you mentioned about the shitty lords? Like there's just constant like infighting, like little conflicts. The warden of this jail of orc prisoners raises up this orc that's considered like almost another alien being, teaches him English, teaches him how to fight, and he was going to essentially use him as like a puppet general to control these groups of people. And then you find out that this groups of people were marginalized and tricked by a group of nasty alien demons. It gets weird, but that they're meant to go to find their own land. This guy liberates an entire group of people. And why I personally love Warcraft 3 is it's the one kind of, well, never mind. It's a story that keeps happening in Warcraft, where everyone teams up together and fights the forces of evil. That's what Warcraft 3 is.
Yes.
Thrall takes all the orcs to another continent, and him and a bunch of humans and a bunch of elves kill a bunch of alien space demons, and we all live happily ever after. That's I don't know. That's for me probably I would say one of my favorite games of all time. That would I guess be my Nintendo 64 if I could say, or my Fantasia was that game.
Right. Well, I would like to counter that with a brand new double response to that story, which is the games developed by From Software and Death Stranding.
Yes, honestly, and you know what? It's like when did you realize that Japan is supreme storytelling? They make a damn good game. They make a damn good spicy story. Movies, it's okay. To
Sure,
all the
yeah.
people, and now we've come full circle because my first episode I referenced Elden Ring. And you got a chance to play that, right?
Yes, I played it many times
Ah, you
during
exci-
those early
those
times
years.
when it was out.
You excited for the DLC, my man? You
Oh
pumped? You
yes,
going
yes I
back?
am.
We're
I'm
going back,
very
everybody.
much.
To everyone who doesn't understand any of this conversation, Elden Ring is. We're going to talk about a guy that also was inspired by Berserk. The whole world that my guy is writing here is a man who knows how to make a good game, a good challenging game. You respect it.
Hidetaka Miyazaki, right?
Oh man, yes, that man. Like he is. If you don't know him, he is our Disney. Except I'm pretty sure he wasn't racist or like. We hope. I don't know. But he
Right.
does no wrong. He makes a good game. If you don't
Yes.
know, Dark Souls is considered one of the best gaming series, not only for gameplay but also story. And the story is interesting because it's like this whole like immortal beings controlling like the universe and like the story of like stagnation of just like people that are considered all powerful and good and sentient, or sorry, they're not good, they're sentient, but they their power is dying and they want to keep the lights on a little bit longer. And what does it mean to sacrifice what we humans are supposed to deal with? Like we have to deal with otherworldly beings controlling us. Like what do we do but kill the gods, you know?
Right.
It's oof. But by all means, whenever you want to talk about Dark Souls, I had to prep the audience about that. So
Yes.
lay it on me. What conversation we having, baby?
So, as a counterpoint to like lowest favorite game story that you've experienced, I would say for me it was Elden Ring. And Dark Souls and that series did inspire me to kind of look into how they did writing. But I think it was Elden Ring that, for me, kind of brought it all together. I think
Mm,
thanks in large part to George R. R. Martin, who helped to get some rules and other facets of the story in there, but I would like to imagine he was more of a consulting force behind it because,
Yeah.
not to say anything against the man, he is a
Oh, no, please.
brilliant,
We,
brilliant writer.
we like George R. R. Martin on this cast, but we also love to make fun of him. You rip that man to
Yes.
shreds.
But the way I look at it is that From Software has made the game writing very player focused because once again, this is uh, ludonarrative dissonance where you have as much agency as to telling where the story might go in relationship to how you're interacting with these.
Dude, this conversation, I'll be frank, I'm trying to be disrespectful. I think I might be on the spectrum because like I just like and maybe I'm saying this completely wrong, but I love hyper focusing on specific things and this specific conversation. What do you call it? The hypo ludo dissonance?
Ludonarrative dissonance.
Okay. Miss Darling, I hope you're listening to this because, like, I will say I appreciate literary devices of the whole, like what you said. Like, it's to think of it as a piece of art. Like, again, I'm going to get really meta and really nerdy. That what is art? Like, if I'm watching a movie and listening to music are completely different ways of consuming the art. With music, you're just listening, you're kind of thinking, you're making your own picture. Movies, you clearly see what the people want to see. You're making the shots, you're making the editing. It's very specific. Games are an interesting art form narrative because, like you mentioned, a game you also have to play it. There's gameplay. And like you mentioned, Dark Souls, you decide ultimately. You have no the story is not set unless you are specifically going out and finding it, but also playing the game. So like you said, you're making a frame of story that is I mean, can you even imagine a book? It's a choose your own adventure, but on like a thousandth millionth scale. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yep.
it's, whew, man, and they do it well, and they do
Yes.
it freaking well. So I was laughing at the George R. R. Martin bit because I was imagining they were literally making the game, and George is just like eating popcorn on the side.
No, no,
And
I
like
would
Miyazaki's
imagine.
like, "Hey, this guy's gonna be his sister." He's like, "That's pretty cool." You know, then they gotta do it, but you know, like it's just like what really was his contribution to that game?
Like, I'm imagining that he has contributed the to a good bit of the terminology and like the what's the story that was the lead up to it. So, seeing as how he's such a huge fan of like ancient military history, and that he applied all of that knowledge to Game of Thrones. My guess is that he was applying that knowledge to events in Elden Ring, like the Shattering, the war between the demigods, what sort of alliances they made. All that stuff is made in context to make Elden Ring a more complete universe in that regard.
No, right, and it's well, the funny thing is that we still and that's where it's as much as I will praise Miyazaki, I also hate Miyazaki for because it makes me think like, does this make good story writing? That like, the joke is that like you essentially write a paragraph of a story and you cut it into strips of paper and you sprinkle it all over a park and you pick it up and you're like, wow, this is really good Dark Souls writing. Like it's like it's literally a sentence of an item description of something you gotta read that says something somewhat vague. It's hard. It doesn't make things very definitive. Like, but also it's a good thing. It's a bad thing. On one thing, it's like, hey, if you write half a story, is that actually a good story? Versus, I don't want them to know about what's going on. But I guess what I'm saying is, I don't know if Miyazaki knows what the hell end of his story is. I think he's just like fuck it. Like, oh, are the gods all powerful? I don't know. Maybe. Like, you might find out, like, in another DLC pack or two. Like,
Yeah.
I guess I'm referencing the Elder Powers, like the final boss. and I'm gonna spoil it because hardcore, if you didn't finish the game, that's your own damn fault. I'm sorry. The game's like what, 3 years old? Go play it. Or stop this. Play Elden Ring. Congratulations. I'm sorry you spent 200 hours playing it because it's amazing, a beautiful game. But the final boss, someone described it like, oh, is it the Elden Beast, right?
hmm
That
And
was a
it is.
MRI of the Loch Ness monster. Like you can see it, can't you?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, I could see that.
so beautiful. But what is like the power behind the Elden Ring? Like what are the elder gods? Like I guess I'm referencing like who's the god of rot or the goddess of rot that bestows millennia that power?
hmm
Like who are the star gods? Like who are the heavy who I guess what I'm asking is who are the nine of this world in Elden Ring? Because they don't tell you. They tell you
Yeah.
maybe three or four and they keep it vague.
hmm
But it makes me think, do they know who those other nine are, or they only come up with, I guess, I don't know, four profiles and we figure it out later. That's something I'm always mildly curious on, is how
hmm
much is the game effectively defined, like this is what the world is, versus, let's keep it that we actually don't know what it is, but we'll leave it to the player's discretion or the reader's discretion.
Sure. And
That
that's something I've always liked from the perspective of a reader and a general consumer. The idea that you're going to have to dig deep in order to understand kind of the bigger picture of what's going on. It's probably one of the reasons why I liked Death Stranding so much, because there's this huge cataclysmic event, the stranding, the
okay,
intersleeving of life and death upon a single plane. And
just be careful too much. I haven't played it. I played
of
10
course,
minutes of it, and you know what that meant? I meant I walked up a hill, and then we stopped.
right.
Like, that,
Okay,
oh
so
my
I won't
god.
I won't spoil it too much then.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
the goal is not just to figure out how to survive in this world, but how to help other people thrive in this place.
All while
And
delivering packages.
yep,
That's
that's how it is.
There it is. And I mean, dude, we want to talk about like game creatives that can do no wrong. Is Hideo Kojima. That
Yeah.
that that guy is. I think I was talking to a friend of mine. He was saying like that's just a director. That's just a game creator that said I really want to be a director, but they won't let me make movies. So I'll just make
In fact,
60-hour games.
he even claims on his X profile, like, my body is 80% movies.
Exactly.
I might
So
get the percentage wrong, but that's one of the quotes he has.
as the people from the internet would say, that is based in red pilled. Uh, oh, dude, I gotta tell you again. No, thank you. This is my another thank you break. This has been such. I've never been able to have specific conversations like these. Like I've been ready to talk about narrative devices in Elden Ring, or like just you can't have conversations like that with anybody. It's only like I think a good chunk of people listening to this may get it, but only like three or four people could be like, I really get what they're saying, and I
Yeah.
love this. Oh man, it is okay. So I guess people play fucking Elden Ring. It's coming out. It's coming out in a couple months. You got time to practice. I barely wasted anything. We're hijacking the conversation. This is now talking about Elden Ring. Favorite boss and what were the build specs you played in it?
Oh God.
I know you weren't ready. He wasn't ready, everybody.
Okay, I'm gonna sound really pretentious, but I went with a very
Oh my god, I was expecting. Go ahead.
heavily armored Faith build that would be
Ooh.
like a couple of new game plus runs later that I would finally get to.
Okay.
But
Okay.
anyway, I went with heavy armor, and there's that one boss you think like, oh my God, this boss is just way too cool. And it would have to be the boss fight with Placidusax in the realm of Faerun.
Is that one of the like circle spirit jail fights?
No, I believe it's a dragon boss fight, and you're
Oh, that's
fighting this,
the two-headed one, right? Or
yeah,
the three.
you're fighting this monolithic looking beast that has wings and two heads on it, and
He's known as a dragon god. He was the strongest power in this universe, and he's like missing like two or three heads, and he can still just push your shit in. Like, oh my god.
yes.
So was that boss super unforgiving, or did you just beat the crap out of it?
I'd say that was a fairly strong boss at the time.
Okay.
I had the strategy of just like chipping away at his feet, and he finally fell down after a couple of good hard hours of practice.
You know what's bullshit is that stupid thing he does. It's like at 50% or 40%, where he just like starts doing like laser beam breaths at you, and if you don't
Yeah.
immediately move out the way, you're dead. It's yeah,
hmm
fuck that guy.
Yeah. But my favorite fight absolutely has to go to the absolute toughest boss thus far, Melania.
That bitch. And I'm not
No,
gonna
no, no,
censor
no, 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 no.
myself. No, I fuck her. Like, okay, say what you gotta say. I got my own. I got my own opinion. I got my own word.
Melania has one of the most sorrowful stories that a boss has had for some time. I mean, this is like I recall the fight between the Nameless King, where this is a king who has long since lost his country, his people, like he's got nowhere else to go. But with Melania,
Well,
she had family. She had a wonderful, endearing little brother who was eternally youthful. Once again, part of his power for whatever reason that might be.
and wanted to just be healing magic, just like he just exactly.
And Melania would help to keep him safe, make sure that no one else would try to abscond with him or his radical power, being a being part of this eternal race, the same as his mother Marika.
Was Ronnie in a Eternal too, or Ethereum, or whatever?
In theory, yeah,
I think
could
so.
be.
Okay. But keep going, keep going.
And here she is being torn from her family as she's fighting on his behalf,
Mm-hmm.
all while this rot god is slowly eating her away from within. And then to top it all off, Moog just kidnaps her brother out of the blue, and
I
now,
don't mean to laugh. It's just the context is funny. It's like this eternal youthful child god gets abducted by a stranger the moment his protector is gone. Like he's just like, it's just.
I mean, with that context in mind, like, you almost feel bad for taking her out, but at the same time, she's one of the toughest bosses in the game.
Ah,
She
that
has
bitch. And I'm only
she has
saying
the
that.
ability to heal
Mm-hmm.
from a couple minor cuts that she will deal against you. She has one of the craziest dance moves that she has where
Yeah,
she'll just
that's what I'm referencing. That stupid ass ability.
run into you and slice you up like a buzzsaw against a tree. And it's just phenomenal fight, especially with one part that I'm not going to mention. But overall, just phenomenal fight in terms of presentation and proof that, she'll do anything to keep her brother and her memory safe.
Okay, no, man, it's yeah. Oh, and hey, and I'm only talking trash because, dude, just like she to people who don't understand the game, only people who played the game know what we're talking about, is that she is unforgiving. Like you said,
Yes.
is one mechanic of hers is that when she hits you, she regains health back, the damage you do. So you have to fight this very quick and very strong, and like there's an ability where she can grab you and pretty much insta kill you if you don't have enough health.
Oh yeah, the right through the belly.
It's this boss is so unforgiving, and God, and she has another phase where she gets even worse. I always make it a point.
But don't spoil it. Don't
I'm not
spoil
gonna
it.
spoil it, but I always make a point. So I also love Dark Souls because you get to be a gaming elitist because it's very much a who's who of gaming. Of like, I don't respect you if you didn't do the hard thing. I fought
Mhm.
Melania 1v1, no summon.
No tear.
Yep,
Hmm.
just me. And granted, I was doing magic, but dude, that's still rough because he does not let you cast very often. She's just like constantly just.
Yeah, but
uh, uh,
supposedly pyro spells are the win. Supposedly.
this was, I think I was doing more arcane stuff, maybe gravity magic. It's been such a long time I haven't tried it again. I gotta get back on it. I did do the next playstyle. I think I did Heavy Faith, but do you remember it's in like a Melania's tower, like one of the items, quest items you have to get the prosthetic arm.
Hmm.
You have to fight this like knight, this like this thorn knight. He has like barbed wire all over him. He's got like a
Um.
spinning lightsaber sword.
Yeah, I
Not ringing
think I
any
do.
bells, or maybe. I'll send it to you if I can find it. But that was the build I went for, and I
Ah.
ate pretty much every boss, but I didn't get to Melania yet. And
Hmm.
was your playstyle, your heavy armor build, was Melania a tough fight, or was it really the dragon was
Oh
the hard
yeah,
fight?
absolutely. In the earlier parts, because I was either fat rolling or like I just tried to shield through the damage and try to chip away as I did before. But once again, you can't really do that with a boss that is this aggressive.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's I well, so I was playing at the heart of. Did you ever do a intelligence build, a magic build?
No, can't say that I have.
You missed out, man. You had to be there because in the beginning it was broken and stupid. Sidebar to my sidebar. Like, I'm gonna keep talking, but have you ever seen or heard of Seth Zintash? He's this YouTuber.
Uh, can't say no.
Okay, I'm gonna send you just a video, and we're gonna watch it maybe live near the end of or that will be like a Patreon exclusive. But always subscribe to the Patreon. Shout out Aiden. Thanks for hooking a brother up. We always love it. Go to patreon.com/OPESpodcast if you want to support a homie out. And yeah, back to the scheduled programming.
Uh,
Uh, I'm gonna send you a video.
okay.
Check it
But
out. It's great.
in terms of unforgiving, shall I perhaps read yet another passage?
Okay, I'll be down. I will ask, how many more do you have? Just wondering.
Just one or two more. Just one or two. That'll be it.
Do you have any long ones? I'm not asking because I want you to stop. I'm asking because like I want more. And do you have
Okay, yeah.
more? I
Right.
want a I want a long one. Do you have anything with fighting?
Yeah,
I want to
okay,
hear a fight
sure.
scene. Okay, okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, okay, music. How are we fighting? Like, is it drum beat? Like we're just nothing's happened yet, or right in the middle of the conflict, like something crazy, like someone's on top of each other. What kind of music do you want right here?
Let's go with just drum beats and just ambient drums. No, nothing else in it.
Okay. I'm gonna put it right here, and I'm gonna just mute myself yet again, and I'm gonna let the master get to work. Everybody, this is Ryan Guzman with Godslayer, and let's begin. Wait, did I? I'm still recording. I was like, we're still recording. It's still okay. I got scared because I was like, bro, we did not just have this amazing conversation and just. I'm sorry. I'm telling you how messed up. Okay, okay. And Godslayer.
We now join Ro and Blue as they begin an encounter with one of the slain.
Ugh, gods above. I think I'm gonna be sick.
Blue, of course, witnessing a literal hall in which the skins of something are strewn about the walls, and a lord presiding over them, with long fingers sharpened like daggers. Hello, Elder. Or should I call you Shrimbikil, Lord of False Image, he of flayed skin? The Lord appears as the dust settles. Shrimbikil appears, trying to sew himself a new skin from the pieces the villagers offer to him. I see you haven't changed. I was just in the process of making the perfect skin, and you are interrupting. I'm comfortable in this body of mine own, but I dare say I could offer you a makeover worth dying for. It would only cost your soul. The only way you are stopping me is killing me. Well then, shall I? Rose starts the fight, a tackle to the body that drives Shrimbikil out of the hut into some houses. Ro attempts to try and rip and punch his way into the god himself, apparently trying to dig into his chest. Shrimbikil attacks with chops and cleaves that try to rip Ro's body to shreds. Both appear to be fighting tooth and nail. But Blue is off to the side, unfortunately trying to figure out a way in his meager frame to help.
Oh man, how am I gonna stop this guy? Oh, come on, think there's gotta be a way. Something I'm missing.
Blue's mind travels back to the hut. He recalls a lack of something. The smell of the meat, it was something on the walls. The one thing that the villagers didn't have, it was... Wait. He finds a hawker nearby that might have what he's looking for.
Excuse me. Do you leave your meat out like this?
It's the god. He doesn't like my meat. It's because I cure it. Says he doesn't like what's in it.
Hey, do you have what you used to cure it?
Elsewhere, Ro continues his fight as earnestly as possible. He tries everything he can to tear into him. But Shrimbikil's skins hold fast, keeping his soul locked tight. And then, Ro does manage to hear someone calling to him in the distance. Oh! It's Blue, holding out a crystal of salt.
Take this!
Blue throws the crystal as hard as he can as Ro's tendrils grab onto it and pull it to his position. Ro then manages to get Shrimbikil's mouth in range. He pushes against his throat and shoves the crystal down. The flayed god soon starts to crumble, his body now shriveling like an overripe fruit. The skins begin to crack, his claws now shatter, and eventually Shrimbikil is now no more than a husk. Ro then takes one good solid swing and cracks open his chest, where inside his soul resides. He looks it over, places it between two of his fingers, and watches it crumble with a satisfying click.
Okay, dude, here's the fun part. The reason why I love doing this cast is because I can add sound effects, so I'm gonna also try to sync up. Like that, the swing, just like, dude, that was tight. I really, so are all the monsters, or just certain fallen, or like, yeah, are all the monsters, can they communicate in this world, or do we have like speechless beasts, or animals, or,
There are some beasts that roam,
okay.
but for the most part, no one tries to bother them. They have their own problems to go through.
I can imagine those problems are most likely problems we gotta deal with in this world. That's so,
Yes.
oh man, and the skin comment. That's why I was just like, I was like, ugh, okay, like there it is. That's the gross part. That's the like, okay, I think it's a little too much. It's Will, right? Again, we're gonna put another applause sound effect right here. Just thank you for sharing,
Yes.
Godslayer. Man, this is great. I'm having an excellent time. I'm gonna roadmap you. I actually might edit this out. We Man, I was we can talk into more nerdy stuff because of this world and just like more questions I have about Godslayer.
Hmm.
I want to make sure that you also read everything you want to read and say everything you want to say.
Of
This
course.
is like the timeout point. What would you, if you only had 20 minutes left, what's like at least one thing you would definitely need? Like, I need to say this, or I want to say this before we end.
Well, I want to share like the lighter side of my narrative abilities.
Okay.
So I wanted to share the story that I shared at Lit Mike as an example. The one that you can read on my social, which will be a good segue.
There it is! And you want pop quiz? I'm not editing this. Haha, you fell into Tristan's classic blunders. Gonna put a sound effect there. A little clown horn. Someone fell down, just yeah, no, that's a good idea, because I had a question about the ending. Because sometimes I'm there where the world is, and then I wasn't sure. You'll read the ending, and I'll be able to ask the questions I have. So it is a good segue. Uh, I loved that fight bit, dude. This is gonna rock. Everyone, Ryan Guzman, here's the segue. How can people contact you? I want this as soon as it's done. I want to ship this. I want to talk more about it.
For right now, I'm currently building and writing this whole masterpiece, if some would call it that, out. And I'm simply just trying to build on what I've got right now. And while I might not be able to produce this monster of a piece out right away, I am working on something that might be more readily accessible, which will allude to this at some point, perhaps in a couple years or so from now.
Hmm.
But if you would like to read into more of what I am producing, more of just the kind of writing that I do, or perhaps you want to talk shop with me on Reddit, I can be found under the Exodian Man with underscores as spaces, and we can just chat. You can use one of my stories as a jumping off point. I've often frequent the world building subreddit. So if you're wanting to talk shop with me or just want to chat about some influences I might have, feel free to stop on by, because one of the stories that I've got on there right now is something that I want to share with you, which is what I've originally wrote for the open mic.
You activated my trap card. I see what you did there. I was trying to lead this conversation, and you got me right where you wanted to, Ryan. You slippery goose. But I had a lovely, lovely time. This has been a great conversation. We're not ending our conversation. We're gonna wrap this episode up, and we're gonna record again. That's gonna be for the Patreon. Again, I don't mean to shill once more, but patreon.com/OPESpodcast. I put stuff there for people who mildly curious, want to support, want to see things. I think for the people who want to hear more nerdy conversations about art, Dark Souls, just fun stuff, check it out. I'm gonna set the scene, and this time This is future Tristan again. I'm gonna put what I feel like is a proper soundtrack to this like story. Because this people, I'll tell you, this was a story that made me want to have him on here. Like I heard it and the man took me somewhere. You're hearing it. That's the best part about this audio is that he's taking you to a place. So I'm gonna set the scene. You by all means read it, and then I'm gonna thank you for your time and we're gonna get the hell out of here. Sound like a plan?
Yep.
All right. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. This is my very good friend, as always, an ordinary person with an extraordinary story, and this is what's the title?
This is an article from the modern worlds outside of Exodus, and will hopefully tell you what kind of lives the people of the Omniverse might lead.
Everyone, this is an article from the Omniverse. Take it away.
Article from the Daily Quartzer. Genius lowers the bar. New improvements to light rail systems. From a news article in the realm of Gemstone. Originally written by Noel Gantz, transcribed by myself. On this day, on the 7th sun of summer in 5987, we are witness to a marvel in engineering. A young prodigy named Dominic, last name omitted, was able to do what was considered impossible. He eliminated the massive costs of the fuel and travel time of the light rail shuttles. He's even paved the way to create a low passenger and very low cost variant of the Blue Line shuttles that are now fixtures within his realm. A vital method of travel for all walks of life in the Omniverse. Here with me now after his graduation is the genius in his first interview with the public. Thank you for taking the time to take part in this interview. Thank you for having me. When you started your development in this area, what was your primary motivation? Were you looking for a job in the engineering sector? Or... No. This wasn't for a job or money. It was about saving time. Time for what? Before I proposed my thesis, I took a full week to travel to realms within 100,000 light years from my home. That's 9 suns of doing nothing but relying on the company of those within the light rail cards ahead for company. So, was this for peace of mind? No. It was so that my family wouldn't suffer losing valuable time helping everyone around us. They're both civil servants, you see, but my mother's a doctor and my father's a local officer. The less time they spend on those large supercarriers means more time they can spend to save lives and keep everyone happy. Less of a headache in the long run. And that's where your new engine comes in. I'm sorry, but did you actually read my thesis? Of course I did. Of course. Then you'll know it's not the engine's fault. What? Indeed, the engines are perfectly fine. It's the fuel that was the problem. The fuel just needed the right mixture of ether and other components to really max out the potential speed. And that was where I started. The fuel gels used in today's commercial lines are just not efficient enough to burn at the speeds needed to cut down the time. So I proposed 2 methods. One, a brand new nozzle to really squeeze out all the efficiency in those engines. And more crucially, FLFG N3. That being the faster than light fuel gel type 3, the most efficient fuel gel mix for this kind of travel.
The best part is that the fuel can be mixed with the old FLFGN2 and infusing the proper ratio of mana into it. That's how we're going to push past that limit that was throttling the engines before. Not to mention, I tested that mixture. My fuel mixture was capable getting this compact shuttle from my realm to Okosa in under 5 seconds. 5 seconds. What took 3 days with those larger carriers now takes 5 seconds. But why? Why fix something that was fine to begin with? What's the end game here? I wish to help people connect. This isn't about money or trying to prove a point. I want to help ease travel because it's already difficult enough out there with pirates, monsters, and God knows who else is out there making havoc. If I speed up travel time, it'll leave less opportunity for them and more opportunity with people who matter. That's what matters for me. Even if you don't earn a single credit? Exactly. This is about the people, like my parents. I'm playing my part to ensure the people of the Omniverse do not live in fear of getting from point A to point B. It's my goal in life, and I don't need anyone else to tell me otherwise. End scene.
I'm gonna edit this end scene part out, just because that was just so cold. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I was Ryan Guzman. Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you for listening to another episode of Ordinary People, Extraordinary Stories. If you're interested in helping the channel, feel free to click on the link below to get access to our Patreon, where we have exclusive episodes and clips not shown to the public. And of course, if you believe you yourself have an interesting story to tell, or know somebody who would be great for the show, feel free to email me back at OPESpodcast@gmail.com. That's OPES. That's the acronym for the show, Ordinary People, Extraordinary Stories, OPES, podcast@gmail.com. Thank you, everybody, and until next time.